Story 1. I was camping for the weekend with 2 college friends in nearby woods. I'll change their names for privacy. Call them Ryan and Jamie. Ryan and I weren't experienced outdoors, so Jamie led everything. He guided us to a small river spot, a couple miles through the forest. There was a huge field right by the river where we set up camp. No one else was there when we arrived. We set up everything in the middle of that field between the woods and the river, then brought out beers and sat by a campfire. A little while later, I noticed people by the tree line. They looked like hunters with dirty clothes and backpacks, blending into the woods, but I saw no rifles. They were far off, so maybe I just missed them. I pointed them out to my friends. Jamie looked puzzled, saying hunting here was illegal and it wasn't even season. He seemed really concerned they were out here. Ryan joked he was overreacting, and we went back to chatting. Hours later, we decided to call it a night. The sun had been down a while, and the hike wore us out. We all went into our tents, but I couldn't fall asleep. Being out in the open, in a tiny tent, on a thin air mattress felt off. I lay there maybe 2 whole hours, hoping for a little sleep, when something jolted me wide awake. Footsteps approaching our tents. First, I thought it was Ryan or Jamie coming back from the bathroom, but I would have heard them unzip their tents. Seconds later, I realized there were multiple footsteps, 2 or 3, maybe more, all walking in a line. I stared at my tent's thin wall, expecting to see their lights, but there were no lights at all. Surely they'd seen our tents in the open field. No one sane would walk past like this. I didn't know what to do, so I pretended to sleep, listening quietly as they got closer. The line of people came within feet of us, walking right past our tents. Once they were far enough, I quietly unzipped my tent and looked out. Right then, Ryan unzipped his too. We exchanged alarmed looks, then looked at the group. They were barely visible, but still walking away. I slipped out and opened Jamie's tent, waking him. Both of us explained, and surprisingly, he seemed more horrified than us, probably because he'd camped often and knew how strange this was. We started packing, too uneasy to stay. While packing, Jamie suddenly told us in a shaky voice to hurry. We looked up, following his gaze to the tree line. The group, now 5 or 6 people, stood staring at us. My adrenaline spiked. I shoved everything into my bag, and we all sprinted for the trail. We left our lights off to avoid being seen, so the walk back was nearly blind. Luckily, we made it. What that group was doing remains unknown, but based on everything, I don't think encountering them was any accident. Story to this was long ago when I was 13, during summer. I spent most days playing PS3 or watching TV. Sometimes I went outside, or hung with friends, but it rained this day, so I stayed in. My dad worked until 10 o'clock. My mum was a nurse with a chaotic schedule. Most of the day I played PS3, but around 7 o'clock I went to the kitchen to make food. While there, a knock came at the front door. I didn't want to answer as a kid. I was always nervous when someone knocked. I waited a minute, trying to stay quiet until they left. After several more knocks, I sneaked to the door and peeked through the peephole, hoping it was a neighbor or someone I knew. I was confused and alarmed to see a police officer standing on our porch, looking around, waiting. Now I felt I had to answer. I opened the door. It was still cold and rainy, and the officer was drenched. Being a kid, my eyes went straight to the gun on his hip. Overall, I felt scared, like I was in trouble. He asked my name, then reassured me everything was okay and I had nothing to worry about. He smiled, trying to calm me, but his teeth were noticeably rotten and yellow. That got me to see how unkempt he looked. Cops were usually put together, so this was off-putting. He noticed my hesitation and tried speeding up the conversation, saying he needed to search the home. I was terrified and confused, but I knew something was wrong. That's when I noticed no police car by my house, especially in the rain. All these red flags piled up. Just as he stepped forward, I slammed and locked the door. He didn't say anything else. He immediately slammed something against the door hard enough to shake it and push me back, thinking the door would give. I ran to the home phone and dialed 911. I was freaking out so much, I'm surprised that the operator understood me. The guy outside didn't give up. He was still banging when real police showed up. I heard him try convincing them he was a real cop, but obviously that failed. He was taken in. Initially, my parents didn't tell me much about the charges, probably for my safety. Years later, they told me the man admitted during interrogation to attempting to kidnap me. Had I been any more trusting, I don't know where I'd be. Story 3. I work at a gas station. I'd been there years, and this night I assumed would be like any other. I came in at 8 o'clock, relieved the day worker who left right away. The first couple hours went quickly, with customers still coming in to buy things or pay for gas with cash. Between 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock, it slowed, making the shift drag. I kept busy another hour stocking whatever I could find. But then came the dreaded second half, full ways, slow, boring, unenjoyable. Around 1 o'clock, a car pulled in and parked by the entrance. Other cars had come through recently, but just for quick gas. Rarely would someone park and come in this late. I stood up straight, rubbing tiredness off my face, expecting them to enter. Minutes passed, and they didn't. I leaned over the counter, looking out the glass door, but reflections blocked my view of their car. Maybe they were just taking a break from driving. I didn't care much. I sat back, pulled up my phone, and spaced out reading articles for maybe 20 minutes. During that time, I heard and saw nothing. Eventually, I looked up, and my heart nearly stopped. A guy was inside the store, standing in an aisle and staring right at me. His eyes darted away as soon as I saw him. He looked mid-40s, wearing a dark jacket, scruffy beard. I never saw or heard him enter. How did he get in? While my mind raced, I watched him walk around, glancing at me a few times like he planned something if I looked away. After just 30 seconds, he suddenly hurried toward the front door and ran outside. I got up and ran to look out. That's when I noticed his car was still there, but he walked right past it to the road until I couldn't see him. I went straight to the cameras to see how he got in. It took a minute to find footage. He slowly, quietly got out of his car, went to the back of the gas station. No cameras were back there, and those doors were never locked since the station was technically always open. What's odd is 15 minutes passed between him going to the back and walking onto the sales floor. Police came to investigate, finding the car he left was stolen months ago. They knew nothing about the guy or his motives sneaking around. He clearly intended something else that night, and I think I was lucky he decided not to go through with it. Story 4. I was off work this night, relaxing at home. My roommate was out of town visiting his parents. I was a night owl, so I enjoyed staying up late. Around midnight, I was sipping a beer, watching TV, when a faint sound came from above. At first, I didn't process it. My body ignored it. After a few seconds, it hit me. It couldn't have been my roommate like usual. I looked up at the ceiling and muted the TV to listen again. Seconds passed, nothing. The sound was so soft, and with the TV on, I had no idea what it was or where upstairs it came from. This sounds dumb, but I didn't feel like getting up and wasn't worried enough to check. I opened the mini fridge next to the couch, grabbed another beer, cracked it, and took a few sips to relax. Before I could unmute the TV, I heard that same thump above me. I looked back up. After a moment, I heard subtle footsteps slowly walking in the room right above me. My whole body went numb. I got up and went to the stairs. Standing at the bottom, I heard a thumping sound echoing through the hallway. I called my roommate's name. I knew it wouldn't be him, but I hoped. No reply. I started climbing the stairs and flicked on the hallway lights. It was empty, but the far door was open my roommate's room. I was 100% certain I'd closed it the day he left and never went in since, so it shouldn't be open. My heart pounded as I walked through the hallway and looked inside. Everything looked clean, nothing out of place. I checked every room upstairs and still found nothing. I didn't sleep that night and spent the next few days on edge waiting for my roommate. I never heard those sounds again or had doors open like that. I don't know what happened. Maybe someone found a way in and out without me knowing, or maybe it was something else. To this day, I still don't know. Story 5. My name is Leo. I work for a pizza shop in my small town. I don't deliver. I mostly do everything inside. Make pizzas, organize stations, clean, and close every night. My customer interaction is minimal since high school kids take orders, but they're only scheduled until 11 o'clock on weekdays. The shop closes at 12:30, so any orders after that, I handle. This was a regular Monday shift. Everything went smoothly, mostly. At 11 o'clock, my co-worker left, so it was just me closing. It's usually slow, so I started cleanup about 30 minutes before closing. A call came in. Praying it wasn't a last-minute order, I picked up. I gave my generic thanks for calling. How can I help you? Line. After I finished, there was a quiet pause, then they hung up. I set the phone down, muttered a few choice words, thinking it was a prank call from immature kids. I went back to the kitchen to clean. Not even 30 seconds later, I heard the bell ring by the door. The timing was annoying, but I put everything down and walked back to the front. A guy stood at the counter. He had a heavy coat and a black beanie over shaggy hair. His eyes really put me off dark circles and bags like he hadn't slept in days, yet they were wide open. How can I help you? I said, standing a couple feet from the counter. I'd like to place an order right now. The way he said it was odd, obviously telling me something was wrong. I said okay and asked what he wanted, but he almost seemed unprepared. His eyes held this disturbing stare as he struggled to respond. I looked away uncomfortably, but my eyes fell on his hand partially out of his jacket pocket. He was holding a kitchen knife. He tried hiding it, but I saw the handle and part of the blade sticking out. My stomach dropped. Blood rushed from my face like I'd faint. I looked back up. His eyes still stared, but his face was stiff and emotionless. The door opening made us both jump. We looked over. Another customer walked in, immediately sensing something wrong. They stopped, stumbling over words. The guy by the register suddenly walked past them and out the door. I used the phone to call 911 and explained to the other customer what happened. We watched out the window as the guy got into his car and sped off. That was the last we saw of him. I think he parked outside, watched through the window as he called. Once he saw me answering alone, he walked in. If not for the random customer, I don't know what would have happened. He was clearly insane and armed. Since then, I haven't seen him come back and hope I never do. Story 6. I was 17, living in my parents' basement. It wasn't trashy, similar to an in-law suite. My parents traveled often, so I was usually down there only for sleep or gaming. This was during one of their work trips. I was alone a whole week. This night was Saturday, so no school, nothing to do. I knew a storm was coming later, so before it got bad, I took my parents' car to the store for food. Driving back, the storm rolled in. Roads weren't busy, thankfully, but even with wipers on high, it was hard to see. I pulled into the driveway, ran to the front door, got inside, and dried off. I went straight to the kitchen, turned on the oven to make dinner. Almost right away, I heard something below me. Sounded like something falling over in the basement, maybe a box. My first thought, a leak down there. I worried about flooding, so I quickly went to the basement. I opened the door, flicked on the light. Walking down the steps, I didn't hear running water or anything. At the bottom, everything looked fine. I walked through the main area with a small couch and TV, then went to the storage room, the only unfinished part, where we stored boxes. I opened the door. At first, everything looked normal. I was confused about what I could have heard. All boxes were stacked, nothing on the ground. After a quick walkthrough, I noticed something strange. One box on top of the stack was open. Inside, everything was scattered old trophies my parents kept, almost all broken. It looked like the box fell, broke everything, then someone quickly tossed it all back in. A surge ran through me. I stared at that box, realizing what it meant. I looked up, scanning the room. Suddenly, all I could think about was how loud the storm was outside, making me unable to hear anything, which panicked me more. I started backing up. Just as I did, a box in the back fell. Behind it, a guy came running at me. I booked it for the stairs. Nothing's more terrifying than hearing his footsteps climbing just a few feet behind me. Fear got to me on the last step. I slammed my foot and fell flat. Every horrible scenario rushed through my mind. When I turned around, the guy reached the top and immediately ran for the front door, out of the house. I got up, locked it behind him, and called the cops. They found an unlocked window he climbed through. Why he came in remains unanswered. Story 7. I was leaving work late due to a security issue that had everyone working overtime. I usually took the train, but knowing I'd be out past running hours, I drove. It was nearly an hour home. Getting out of the city, I saw my gas was almost empty. I didn't remember it being this low before work, maybe too tired to notice. I knew there was a gas station near home, so I'd fill up there. 10 minutes later, an alert popped up, extremely low fuel. It went down way faster than it should have. Within a minute, my car sputtered and barely ran. I pulled over. As I parked, the engine cut out. I tried restarting, nothing. Worried and frustrated, how was this happening? I took my flashlight from the glove compartment, got out. The issue took less than 5 seconds to find. Gas was clearly leaking. I had no idea how everything was fine earlier. Before I could think, a truck pulled up behind me. Their headlights were off. They parked unnervingly fast, like no hesitation. I stood up, looked at their windshield, seeing figures moving inside. "I'm okay, guys. Don't need help," I called out. They ignored me, kept moving until a door opened. A guy got out. Others stayed in the truck. Ironically, he asked if I needed help as he walked toward me. The way he said it was weird as smirk, strange tone. "I don't need anything," I said again. He kept walking until uncomfortably close. "Why don't I give you a ride home? Least I could do," he said with a creepy forced smile. I declined, quickly got into my car. Disturbingly, he stood there a whole minute, staring through the window, not speaking. I looked forward, called police for help with my car. The whole time, I could see him in my peripheral vision, standing outside my window, staring. During the call, he walked back to his truck. I watched in the mirror as he got in, then slowly drove past. We made eye contact as he passed. Briefly, I saw someone in his back seat pressed against the window with wide eyes. I couldn't get a good look, but I knew something was wrong. I don't think that person was in that truck willingly. When he drove off, the license plate was missing. Police showed up. I told them everything. They found my gas tank was stabbed purposefully, likely the guy planned it. Followed me until my car broke down, hoping I'd accept the ride. Whether that person was in danger, we don't know. That man was never found. Story 8. I was in Washington State, backpacking through national parks. I was already 20 miles from the nearest road. The first 2 days, I hadn't run into anyone. It was early fall, a bit colder than most like, but I had proper gear. In the morning, I got up, made coffee over my pocket stove, and headed to the next campsite 6 miles out, a far hike in mountains. For hours in, I suddenly heard footsteps ahead. I looked up, saw a man walking the opposite way on the trail. I wasn't expecting anyone. I smiled and nodded as he passed, but noticed something strange. He had no backpack, no water bottle, nothing. Just a long-sleeve tee and old hiking pants. I turned round for another look. He glanced back at me. To avoid weirdness, I turned back and kept walking. After distance, I forgot about it. Maybe he had a campsite nearby and was just walking. But I knew no established camps were near. Whatever, I didn't dwell. The next hours were tough, but I made it to my campsite. It was empty, one small spot for my tent. It wasn't great, the view was supposed to be better, but from the campsite, trees blocked it. It felt like middle of a forest, not a mountaintop. Rightfully exhausted, I set up my tent, then relaxed watching sunset. As I sat, I randomly heard shuffling behind me. I turned, stunned, to see the same man I'd run into earlier. Still no backpack. More confusing. Why was he here? He was walking opposite when I last saw him. To get here now, he must have turned around soon after passing me. He walked up to the campsite, ignoring me like I wasn't there or invisible. He went to the other side, sat on dirt, looking into the forest. He was only 15 feet away, looking away, so I got a better look. Late 30s, short, scruffy beard, brown hair. I felt uneasy. Nothing felt natural. As sun set, I felt more unsafe. Who was he? What was he doing 25 miles out with no shelter, food, or water? About 30 minutes passed, he didn't move. I decided I couldn't stay. I had nowhere else, but I'd find a random spot and ensure he didn't follow. I took down my tent, packed up. Only then did the man look over. Once he did, he never looked away. Every time I looked, he stared. I got everything stashed, saw in my peripheral he stood up. I walked fast, hearing footsteps close behind. I clutched my small knife, unsure what would happen. after a minute. I looked back a few times, still following but falling back. I took a risk, veered off trail into woods. Pitch black now, I hoped he didn't see me and kept walking. Once 20 feet in, I leaned behind a tree. Story 8. I was in Washington State, backpacking through national parks. I was already 20 miles from the nearest road. The first 2 days, I hadn't run into anyone. It was early fall, a bit colder than most like, but I had proper gear. In the morning, I got up, made coffee over my pocket stove, and headed to the next campsite 6 miles out, a far hike in mountains. For hours in, I suddenly heard footsteps ahead. I looked up, saw a man walking the opposite way on the trail. I wasn't expecting anyone. I smiled and nodded as he passed, but noticed something strange. He had no backpack, no water bottle, nothing. Just a long-sleeved tee and old hiking pants. I turned round for another look. He glanced back at me. To avoid weirdness, I turned back and kept walking. After distance, I forgot about it. Maybe he had a campsite nearby and was just walking. But I knew no established camps were near. Whatever, I didn't dwell. The next hours were tough, but I made it to my campsite. It was empty, one small spot for my tent. It wasn't great, the view was supposed to be better, but from the campsite, trees blocked it. It felt like middle of a forest, not a mountaintop. Rightfully exhausted, I set up my tent, then relaxed watching sunset. As I sat, I randomly heard shuffling behind me. I turned, stunned, to see the same man I'd run into earlier. Still no backpack. More confusing. Why was he here? He was walking. Opposite when I last saw him. To get here now, he must have turned around soon after passing me. He walked up to the campsite, ignoring me like I wasn't there or invisible. He went to the other side, sat on dirt, looking into the forest. He was only 15 feet away, looking away, so I got a better look. Late 30s, short, scruffy beard, brown hair. I felt uneasy. Nothing felt natural. As sun set, I felt more unsafe. Who was he? What was he doing 25 miles out with no shelter, food, or water? About 30 minutes passed, he didn't move. I decided I couldn't stay. I had nowhere else, but I'd find a random spot and ensure he didn't follow. I took down my tent, packed up. Only then did the man look over. Once he did, he never looked away. Every time I looked, he stared. I got everything stashed, saw in my peripheral he stood up. I walked fast, hearing footsteps close behind. I clutched my small knife, unsure what would happen. After a minute, I looked back a few times, still following but falling back. I took a risk, veered off trail into woods. Pitch black now, I hoped he didn't see me and kept walking. Once 20 feet in, I leaned behind a tree and waited. 30 seconds later, footsteps came down the trail. Just as he passed, he stopped. I watched his dark figure look around like he knew I wasn't on trail. Then he started yelling, trying to sound friendly, which made it more disturbing. After 2 minutes, he stopped yelling but walked straight into woods across the trail. His figure disappeared. Woods fell silent. I waited over an hour before getting up and making my way back. I pushed to skip the next campsite to be safe. Back in town, I reported to local police. They never followed up. I don't know if he lived out there, tried to rob or kidnap people, or both. I'm lucky I got away. Story 9. I worked my regular 2 to 10 closing shift at a small drive-through cafe. It's tiny, with 5 indoor seats, since most businesses drive-through. This wasn't busy, especially late. Being the only closer, I'd usually sit at a dining table on my phone, getting up only for drive-through customers. This night, it drizzled. So even slower. Past 7 o'clock, no customers came for 2 hours straight. I was just sitting at a table watching Netflix when the front door opened. It startled me nobody comes in this late. He didn't notice me sitting there. He walked to a different table at the other end and sat with his back to me. Something was off. Very tall, dark clothing, soaked despite drizzle. How did he get here? No cars pulled in. He must have walked. I stood, walked over, greeted him, asked what he wanted. He didn't smile or say hi back, just sat blank-faced. I waited, repeated myself. He cut me off, asking who else was working tonight. I was confused, nervous, but answered, just me, but we close in an hour. He asked for a small coffee. I walked to the kitchen, started making it. I grabbed a cup, poured it, turned to go back, and saw him standing in the kitchen doorway. Need something else? He didn't respond. Facing me directly, I saw his eyes were bloodshot, face blank, no emotion. It made me uneasy. Put the drink down and come with me, he demanded, looking ready to force me. He was way bigger. I moved slow, thinking of escape. As we left, he grabbed my shirt collar, pushed me across the parking lot toward the road. Across the road was Woodsnow buildings. That's exactly where he led. Just as we crossed, a car rolled past. Both of us stared, realized it was a police officer looking back. I started screaming. The guy let go, sprinted across the road into woods. The officer pulled into the lot, ensured I was okay, called backup. Crazy he wasn't on shift. Heading home, saw us at the perfect time. Story 11. This happened nearly 2 years ago. I was on what I thought would be a routine vacation to visit my parents. I'd rented an Airbnb for the first time and was excited. The house sat on a large plot of land, spacious and quiet. Coming from city life, this felt like luxury. I set my things in the room and left immediately to see my family. I spent the whole afternoon with them before returning to the Airbnb to make a snack and watch a movie. It was around 10 or 11 p.m., pretty late. Mid-movie, I heard someone walking outside the house. The sound was unmistakable and threw me off. Guard. I paused the movie, stood up, and hurried to the back door. Peering out, I saw a man walking away from the house, toward the trees behind it. What disturbed me, I never heard him approach. He must have been standing by the house before I heard him leave. Once he was out of sight, I stepped outside. The patio was empty, but shoe prints marked the grass. I followed them to a window and looked inside, had a direct line of sight to the couch where I'd been sitting. Chills ran through me, imagining him staring in at me without my knowing. I rushed back inside and covered all the windows. For the next half hour, I sat in the living room with the TV volume low. Story 11. This happened nearly 2 years ago. I was on what I thought would be a routine vacation to visit my parents. I'd rented an Airbnb for the first time and was excited. The house sat on a large plot of land, spacious and quiet. Coming from city life, this felt like luxury. I set my things in the room and left immediately to see my family. I spent the whole afternoon with them before returning to the Airbnb to make a snack and watch a movie. It was around 10 or 11 p.m., pretty late. Mid-movie, I heard someone walking outside the house. The sound was unmistakable and threw me off. Guard. I paused the movie, stood up, and hurried to the back door. Peering out, I saw a man walking away from the house, toward the trees behind it. What disturbed me, I never heard him approach. He must have been standing by the house before I heard him leave. Once he was out of sight, I stepped outside. The patio was empty, but shoe prints marked the grass. I followed them to a window and looked inside, had a direct line of sight to the couch where I'd been sitting. Chills ran through me, imagining him staring in at me without my knowing. I rushed back inside and covered all the windows. For the next half hour, I sat in the living room with the TV volume low, listening for his return. I heard nothing. After the movie, I knew I had to sleep. As I went upstairs for a final check, I moved the curtains and saw nothing but heard footsteps sprinting away from outside the window. I hesitated before looking out and seeing the same guy vanish into the trees. I grabbed my phone and called police. By then, he was too far to find. While inspecting the house afterward, I noticed my suitcase in the bedroom was open. It had clearly been searched, and items were missing. This likely happened while I was with my family. He might have still been inside when I returned, sneaking out a window before I saw him. Why he came back afterward disturbs me most. If I hadn't caught him watching me, I might have gone to bed with him waiting right outside the window. Story 12. It was fall 2018. I was 22, temporarily living on the East Coast near the Appalachian Mountains. I'll admit I'd never been outdoorsy, no camping experience or interest. But this was my last year in a prime outdoor area, and with mid-fall foliage and nice weather, I figured I'd try hiking. I picked a simple trail with mountain views. No cars were parked at the small dirt lot, it wasn't popular. I started walking. The path was calm and felt little used. No recent shoe prints, just a narrow trail with trees on either side. As I went deeper, trees thickened, blocking sun and shading the whole trail. It was cooling but isolating. After an hour or two, I saw a man sitting beside the trail under a tree, seemingly resting. Passing him, I nodded and said, "Hi." He looked up but said nothing. No smile or nod, just stared for seconds before I looked away. His blank expression unnerved me. I walked faster to put distance between us. An hour later, I slowed and reached the end and overlook. Full colors made the view stunning. I stared for minutes, glad I'd hiked. When I turned to leave, my heart nearly stopped. The man from earlier stood at the trail's end, maybe 10 feet away. I'd never heard him approach after the scare. I realized how creepy it was that he wasn't admiring the view. Then he did something odder. His face shifted into a smile. "Hi, how's the view?" "Really nice," I replied, trying to be polite. "You should look too." He stepped closer, pointed right, and said there was a better view down another path. I glanced over my shoulder. A rugged, barely visible trail through dense trees, clearly seldom used. The man walked to where it started, stood at the entrance, and insisted the view was just a minute away. I politely declined, but he kept pressing until his intentions felt obvious. I said I had to get home and started toward the main trail. He moved in front of it. I stopped, terrified. He stared blankly. Miraculously, nothing escalated as I walked around him and down the trail. He watched me the whole way. Thankfully, he didn't follow. I made it to my car. Whatever he planned, likely nothing good. I'm glad I escaped. Story 13. I was 16 last year. A few days before Halloween, my friend Leon and I discussed plans. We felt too old for trick-or-treating, but wanted holiday fun. After discarding ideas, I suggested exploring an abandoned farm we both knew about. It seemed creepy and thrilling, perfect for Halloween. Compared to other ideas, this one, Leon agreed, but we worried others might go on the 31st, so we chose. The night before, on the 30th, Leon drove us near the neighborhood, parked on the road, and we walked to a gravel driveway leading to the farm. I'd only seen it by day, a grassy field with a barn and single-story home. From the path, neither structure was visible. Flashlights lit only a few feet ahead as we started down the driveway. Nearing the barn, we saw its outline. The house stood further back. We headed there, thinking the barn would be empty and dull. Reaching a dirt clearing, we passed rusted farming equipment before the porch. The door was replaced by a solid wooden board. We circled the house, every window and door sealed. Disappointed, we returned to the front. Seeing the path to the barn, a line of flattened grass, we headed over. Approaching felt different and easy. The large barn door hung open. I entered first. Leon followed. Flashlights scanned the space. A horrid smell hit instantly. Then we saw footprints, not from kids exploring. They led back and forth from a point across the barn. Leon looked equally freaked. We followed them to a wooden cellar hatch blended into the floor, noticeable only by footsteps and a shiny new padlock. Before we processed it, a sudden thud shook the barn. We spun. The door had slammed shut. Leon sprinted, shoved it open, and we scanned no one. Terrified, we bolted through tall grass to the gravel driveway, then to the car. We got our scare, maybe too much. Months later, the property was blocked off. No public word why. What happened? There remains a mystery. Had we stayed, we might not have left. Story 14. This happened last fall, near winter. Where I live, October gets cold, even snowy. I'd done food delivery for 3 years and was working this night. Around 1 a.m., light snow fell, one of the first snowfalls. People must have been skittish. Few cars were out. I was one of the only drivers. Orders poured in. I'd finish one, and another appeared. After driving until almost 1 a.m., I took a last order. Snow picked up. I was tired. I grabbed McDonald's, set directions 10 minutes away but opposite where I lived. I was already 25 minutes from home, so the drive back would be long. Annoyed, I turned onto the road. I noticed the road leaving town. Checking the map, it seemed an unusual route. I only knew this road led to an out-of-state highway. Minutes later, I reached a turn. A small street off the road, tree-lined and slippery. Carefully, I drove down, seeing long driveways to faint lights. Before my turn, I slowly drove a driveway to a medium-sized older house covered in snow. Nothing notable, just isolated in woods. I parked, grabbed the bag, and walked to the door. Story 15. This happened years ago, in early October. I had 2 weeks off and took a trip to a cabin in hills outside my city. It was an Airbnb, far out perfect, since I wanted to camp too. I drove 2 hours, arriving afternoon. It was quiet, no cabins or buildings nearby, just woods. I set things inside. Rooms were cozy, old-fashioned. Not my taste, but a nice change. The first night and next days passed uneventfully. I relaxed outside in cold fall weather by day, inside by the fireplace. At night, on the 5th day, I set out with camping gear. I planned 2 or 3 nights. Trails nearby connected to the cabin, so I left straight from there. I walked 3 or 4 hours before finding a spot, the only clearing aside from the trail, camping. On the path felt uncomfortable. I set up my tent, started a fire. As dark fell, I put on layers against the cold. I sat by the fire an hour, eating, waiting to tire. Then I spotted something, a figure walking in the woods. I watched them move through dark, no flashlight, and vanish. Only my campfire lit the woods, so they must have seen me. Their walking, no light, off-trailin' nerved me. I considered the long walk back to the cabin, but knew it wasn't safe at night. I stayed alert half an hour, seeing nothing. Tired, I flattened the fire to ash. Just as the glow faded, footsteps came from the campsite's left. My eyes widened, straining to adjust. Footsteps grew louder, nearing the campsite. Close enough to be just out of sight, they veered off, passed by, and faded. They never acknowledged me, but encountering someone here felt impossible as coincidence. Once gone, I took my flashlight, disassembled my tent, and packed. I walked quickly to the trail, keeping calm. Woods were quiet, adding eeriness. I made it back to the cabin, exhausted, foggy-minded. I collapsed on the couch. As I slept, I groggily woke to wood scraping against walls. My eyes shot open. At the room's back, a man outside pushed a window open. Our eyes met. He dropped the window and ran. By the time I reached the window, he was deep in woods. I gathered my things, drove to a hotel. I don't know who he was, but clearly he'd followed me and tried breaking in. Had he succeeded, there's no telling what he'd have done. Story 16, it was a few days before Halloween. I had the next few days off, so after work I looked forward to staying up late. I grabbed fast food, ate on the couch, watching Netflix. 30 minutes in, I paused to throw out leftovers. Walking into the kitchen, I tossed it. Turning around, I saw someone standing in my backyard, just staring at my house. My backyard was small, but fence no shortcut excuse. I flipped on the porch light, slid the door open. "Hey, what are you doing?" I yelled. With light, I saw his face, young, 20s, tired and creepy eyes. He didn't respond. "You need to leave, this is my property." He glanced at me, then casually walked to the gate. I ensured he left, watching him walk down the street. I went outside, stood where he was, and looked at my house, nothing notable. Back inside, I poured a drink and resumed my show. 20 minutes later, I heard footsteps in the backyard, then a thud against my house. I ran to the kitchen, the same guy against my back door, pushing and pulling aggressively. I held the handle in case the lock failed. Seeing his rage close up horrified me. I backed away, called police. He stopped, stared through the glass door, breathing heavily, rage in his eyes. Then he walked to the gate, but stayed hidden beside the house. I checked windows constantly, waiting for police. 5 minutes of silence passed before a police car arrived. Instantly, footsteps ran from the house side, not away, but back to the door, trying to force it. He chose breaking in over fleeing. Police caught him. He was heavily under the influence. Later confirmed, sober, he never gave reasons. Part of me thinks he was just crazy, but his eyes and choice to break in over fleeing suggest intent. Had he gotten in, it would have been horrifying. He served only weeks due to intoxication. I worry he'll return. Story 17. 2 years ago, I lived with my younger brother on the East Coast. We rarely went out beyond hanging with friends. One researched activities. Camping came up often near the Appalachians. I told my brother he wasn't interested. Days later, I bought a tent and safety tools, packed an old backpack, and drove to a trail. Yes, inexperienced and alone wasn't smart, but I planned one night. After an hour driving, I reached the trail. No cars or people. I put on my backpack and started hiking. The path was thin and overgrown, not well made or popular. As I hiked, it grew worse. Bushes blocked the way. Grass obscured the trail. After an hour, I made it to the campsite, just woods, no views. I pitched my tent, made lunch. My dad's a talker, so we chatted all day. At sunset, we gathered sticks for a fire. Mid-conversation, a loud voice interrupted us. We spun around. Woods fell silent, no one in sight. It sounded close, maybe a mile away. We stood still 30 seconds, scanning. Then it came again, a man's pained, harsh scream. Chills ran through me. My dad looked conflicted. He led me back to camp, started the fire fast. Screams continued. I asked if we should help. My dad faced me, serious. Stay by the fire, wait. He'd run toward the voice, see what he could see. If I saw anyone, don't let them near. He ran off. After 10 minutes, I worried. Sun dropped fast, no sign of him. Suddenly, screaming stopped. Forest went quiet. I wondered if Dad found him. Another 10 minutes, nothing. With darkness covering the woods, I grew nervous. I walked toward where Dad went. Footsteps approached. Before they came into sight, a voice yelled my name, Dad, running toward me, urgency in his voice. Go back. I hurried to camp. Dad followed, packed essentials fast. Fear and distress marked his face, I still remember it. We ran the first mile, then fast walked to the car. Driving home, I asked who the man was, why he screamed. Dad said nothing. To this day, he won't speak of it. His demeanor darkens if I mention it. I stopped asking. All I think of, those footsteps nearing me, and what might have happened if Dad hadn't shown up. Story 18. Not long ago, I hiked a long trail in dense woods behind my town, a close-knit place under 1,000 people, far from cities. Woods on the outskirts were flat, with ponds and small rivers. I headed to one river I'd visited before but never camped. From memory, it was a 3-hour walk north. Walking between trees, it was quiet, just birds and rustling animals. People, I didn't expect any, since this wasn't a trail, just open woods. 45 minutes from the river, I ran into someone. We walked toward each other, neither noticing until feet apart, separated by trees. I looked confused, almost nervous. Finding someone off trail here was unusual. He mirrored my expression. I was about to say hello when his face shifted into a nervous smile. He turned and walked off to the side. I followed his lead, kept walking. Looking back, I saw him no longer walking, but running away silently. Running into each other unsettled me. Seeing him run made it stranger, like he didn't want to be seen or cared about the coincidence. Whatever, I minded my business, reached the river, and set up camp. I dropped my bag and tent on the flattest spot, started a fire. Sunset neared. I tossed sticks in, ensuring it'd burn hours. I hoped to stargaze away from town, Milky Way views I never miss. Hours passed. A distinct sound came through quiet. Woods behind me, slow, careful footsteps. I turned, saw nothing in the dark. As I scanned, footsteps stopped, they could see me. I grabbed my heavy-duty flashlight, shined it at trees. Moving it, I saw no one. Anyone out there? Hello? No response, not even footsteps. After a moment, I walked toward the sound. Carefully, I stepped through woods, flashlight steady ahead. At the sound's origin, I moved light-leapt behind trees. Suddenly, it revealed a large man, the one I'd run into hours earlier. He stood 20 feet away, motionless in darkness, eyes locked on me. With no choice, I walked on the staircase edge, passing him with feet between us, his eyes following. At the bottom, I opened the door, ran into the lobby, and hurried to my car. I sat in the lot, looking back. That was probably the dumbest thing I'd done. I hadn't realized what I was walking into. I don't know why he was there or what he wanted, but leaving was my only good decision. Story 19. I was delivering a truckload to a company on the West Coast, coming from the East. I'd taken this cross-country route many times in my 20 years as a truck driver. It was always the same roads, same truck stops. In 20 years, nothing crazy happened. Few odd scenarios, but nothing serious. Driving this route again, I had no worries. About 20 hours in, a storm started. It slowed my driving and was late, so I was already looking for the next truck stop to sleep, driving. A sudden light appeared behind me. The road was flat and straight. I'd have seen them coming. But suddenly, they were right behind me. Maybe they'd just turned on lights. They quickly closed in. I kept eyes on them until they got so close, the trailer blocked my view only. Headlights reflecting off the back. Then their light shut off. I maintained speed, checking mirrors, but couldn't see them. Turning off lights in a storm was insane. Tailgating, equally so. Thankfully, a sign showed a truck stop 5 miles ahead. I focused on getting there. 10 more minutes, no sign of them. Pulling in, rain and poor lighting made it hard to see. The lot was mostly empty, except trucks at gas pumps. I parked. After a minute, I opened the door, leaned out drenched instantly. No car behind me. I shut the door, grabbed pillow and blanket, locked doors, turned off the truck, and tried sleeping. Rain pounding the metal roof helped me drift off. Waking, I felt I'd slept minutes. Still dark, storm worse. A loud thump shook the truck. Eyes wide, I reached for the door handle, opened it, looked toward the trailer. Through rain, I saw a car with headlights off and 2 men moving in front of it. Terrified, I hesitated to confront them. In that moment, the door slammed against me, shoving me back into the driver's seat. Another man stood outside yelling, "Stay where you are." His right hand was shoved in his hoodie. With 2 men behind the truck, I was trapped. I felt the truck shake as he watched me, never looking away. Minutes later, they ran to their car and drove off. In shock, I called police. They found my gas tank stabbed purposefully, likely the guy planned it. Followed me until breakdown, hoping I'd accept a ride. Whether the person in the back was in danger, we don't know. The man was never found. Story 20. It was a typical Friday after college classes. I was spending the night doing DoorDash, my weekend routine to cover living expenses. The night started well. Many orders, good pay. Then it stalled after dinner rush. Few orders came. Low-paying ones weren't worth it. After an hour of aimless driving, an order appeared not bad. 8 miles away, but pay justified it. I accepted, grabbed the bag, and drove. The map said 30 minutes, longest I'd done. Most houses were near campus. Beyond 15 to 20 minutes. It was just fields. At the 20-minute mark, farmland surrounded me. Soon, I turned down a dirt driveway through a large field. In the far back sat a small house. Driving through the field felt eerie. Only my car rumbled on dirt. I parked, left the car running, and walked to the porch. Night was quiet. Only the porch light lit the dark house. I knocked, waited, looked back at my car, sitting in dark with pitch-black fields behind it. Knocked again. No response. No sounds inside. No lights in windows. The house looked decayed up close. The porch light was the only clue it wasn't abandoned. Then I recognized its solar battery automatic. No one needed to turn it on. Just as I pieced this together, rumbling sounded behind me. A car drove down the dirt path, parked behind mine. A man stepped out. I yelled from the porch, "Is this your order?" He didn't reply, just stood by his car, motionless. Adrenaline spiked. Silence emphasized my isolation, stuck between an empty house and a stranger in a field. Instinct took over. I dropped the bag, sprinted off the porch behind the house into the field. Tall grass covered all direction. I slowed, catching my breath, moving quietly. I reached another yard, then a road, called for help. Police picked me up. My car wasn't looted. The food bag sat on the porch. The man had other intentions, likely far worse than robbery.